Welcome back to another episode of A Gift from Adversity. My name is Juri. I'm your host. Thank you so much for tuning in. Today we are recording episode 78. Before I introduce my guest, I want to introduce my book, which is the same title as this podcast, A Gift from Adversity, which is available on Amazon. The subtitle is Overcoming Sexual Abuse, Domestic Violence, Bullying, and Homelessness. After I published this book, I got a lot of messages from different places, people telling about their adversities. And I felt very compelled to share not only my story, but create a platform where people can share their adversities, but also tools that they use to overcome and the gift that came from it. I'm very, very grateful to have brave guests so far from all over the world who have been sharing their true stories, tools that they use to overcome, and a gift. And my goal really is to provide this podcast as a gift to our generation and our next generations to come so we have more skills to help ourselves. So tonight I have a guest for the first time from Philippines, and her name is Valerie Fischer. Hi,
Hello.
Valerie. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much. So I'm actually on the opposite side of the world. We're 12 hours apart right now. It's morning here. It's evening there. Hello, everybody. I know that you have viewers and listeners from all over the world. So I greet you. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are.
So, Valerie, tell us your name and where you're coming in from, and then what you do, and if you have a website or social media as well.
Okay. So my name is Valerie Fisher. I am coming to you live here in Manila, Philippines. I would like for everybody to connect with me through specifically LinkedIn. I'm active on LinkedIn. So my LinkedIn account is Valerie P Fisher, Fischer. I am a trainer and a coach consultant. So I use neuro linguistic programming in digital marketing to come up with what I trademarked as brain science selling. So it's really identifying and understanding how people think and using that for marketing strategy. So that's what I do.
Do you have any Instagram, Facebook, social media, website too?
Yes, my website is www.valeriepfisher.net. So I'm Valerie P Fisher everywhere: Instagram, TikTok, even Facebook, and also on LinkedIn. So it's Valerie P Fisher.
So people can find you, Valerie P Fisher. Got it. .net is the website. So I just put on the comment page, a comment section, and if people have any comments, feel free to type. So let's dive into the first question of this podcast, which is the adversity. So Valerie, can you tell us what was your adversity?
Um, Well, I've had several, but the ones that I want to talk to everybody about, which I think became milestones. Like these are the pivotal moments in my life. The first one was when my mom got sick. I was actually when she got sick, I was 12 and she passed away. I was 15. That's the first one. So, I've experienced loss at a very young age. The second adversity was when my then boyfriend was killed in a 7-Eleven robbery. So it's a convenience store robbery in broad daylight back in 2012. And then the recent one, well, the most recent one is in 20 was in 2020, when at the start of the pandemic I lost my dream job. Like, that was my dream job. And I lost it at the start of the pandemic, when everybody was feeling anxious and scared and, confused and uncertain. So that was a tough time.
What was your dream job?
Chief marketing officer, because people in the marketing industry, like in the marketing world, that's what you aim for. That's kind of the highest, the chief marketing officer, head of marketing, marketing director. That's what you really, so from the time that I started work, that was what I was aiming for.
Did they tell you why they have to let you go?
um at that time, because they didn't have, well, I was the last one to come in. I was recently hired. So the last one in, first one out. That was really the main reason why. And then the second was financial issues with my employer, because my employer didn't want to pay my recruiter. Because when you, here in the Philippines, when you become a regular employee and the employer got you through a recruiter, they have to pay the recruiter. So they didn't want to pay that because of, financial difficulties, especially at the start of the pandemic.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that, Valerie. Let's actually go back to the first adversity that you experienced. Um, so you're 15 years old. Did you have siblings?
Yes, I am the eldest of three kids. I have, so after me, I have a sister who's 4 years younger, and then another brother who is 3 years younger than her, so 7 years younger than me. So my brother at that time was, I think, only like 7 or 8 when my mom passed away. So I was kind of, delegated as the second mom when she passed away, and I was only 15 at that time.
How did how did your mom pass?
Um, so we found out that she has been living with just one kidney all her life. So, from the time that she was born, the she only had one kidney, and then that kidney worked double time for, for everything that the body needs. So by the time that we found out, it was already late stage. It was a kidney failure. Kidney failure. It was late stage. The doctor gave her 6 months to live, but she lived for 4 years. Actually, she lived for 4 years. She really fought, like the whole family fought with her. Um, I remember at 12 years old, if anybody's familiar with dialysis, we would go to the hospital. And then I remember one of those moments. It was my birthday, and I saw the blood being pumped out of her, and the blood, this being pumped out, it goes into this machine and then goes back into her body to clean, because her body does not have the ability to clean its own blood. And I remember my birthday, I passed out because I'm like, oh my God, this is my mom, and there's so much blood. Even if it's not, it's in the tube, and I saw her suffering, so I passed out. The doctors were like, okay, we have another patient here, because I passed out. So and then also my brother, even at 7 years old, he had to, because it moved from that machine. When it became worse, when it worsened, we had to change into the what do you call that, there's a bag in her tummy that we replace, because she can't pee by herself anymore, so it's actually pee. And my brother, even at 7 years old, learned how to replace that bag. So he was a nurse. even at 7 years old. So those are the things that we experience. And I was 15, graduating high school at the time, when finally, her body just couldn't couldn't make it anymore.
How do you remember how you felt at such a young age, knowing that she had been fighting with this, and then being feeling responsible for other younger siblings, but you had to study and
Yes.
you're a student, and then other students obviously were not experiencing that. Did you experience any bullying or isolation or feeling like really isolated or sad or anything?
I actually received a standing ovation when I graduated, because I graduated valedictorian the year that my mom passed away. And then I thanked her in my valedictory speech, and everybody, because everybody knew our suffering. Like, they knew what we were going through at the time, and they were so impressed that I was still able to graduate on time, and even at the top of my class. But yes, I did feel the isolation, because instead of having lunch, or like during recess time, we live close to the school, and during lunch break I did not have time to bond with others, because I would go home to change my mom's bag. So I did not have those, in the corporate world, we now call it the pantry conversations. I didn't have those kinds of conversations, at least towards the end part of my high school, because I had to go back and be, responsible for that change. I mean, my brother knows how, but I'm the oldest. I'm responsible for that. And at that time, to be honest, I felt, this is just sharing my true feelings. I felt annoyed. I felt mad, because, like, why did we have to go through that? I was, an angsty teenager, and I blamed my mom for not taking care of herself. I blamed my dad for not having enough money for like a caregiver. So there was blaming all over. And that's really how I felt at that time. And then when she passed away, there's the guilt and the shame that I felt, the anger. And but I had no choice but to be responsible for my brother and my sister.
So after your mom passed, did you have to work, or were you able to study and just not work?
Well, I got a scholarship so that I can still continue studying. But because I was the eldest and we didn't have enough, a lot of money, I didn't have the luxury of a gap year, for example, for kids who are still, trying to find themselves. I immediately had to find a job that will help the family, because my dad at that time, he was still working, but he wasn't earning enough for all of us. So I had to immediately, jump in as a breadwinner.
Was where were you working?
My first job was in an advertising agency, specifically doing events and road shows. That was my first job. And like when I was in high school, the episodes continued. Something like, my friends after graduating, they would go have Christmas vacations, they would travel, they would shop. I didn't again have the luxury of that, because most of my money either went to rent or tuition for my brother and my sister.
I I'm really speechless. I'm trying to think. Loss of a parent. at such a young age, and then being the oldest. Um, I don't know, like the pressure that you felt, maybe like growing up way too fast at such
Yes.
a young age. Did it affect your adult life? Like, do you feel that part of your maturity, like that you have to grow up quickly? Did it affect your mental health or anything maybe in your later life?
Um, I think it helped me become stronger. I also think the positive side of it is that I didn't really have it, a lot of friends. So I kept my friends close, but really close. A few, but really close. Um, how it affected me is, after that, when I was 15, I told myself, I lost my mom at such a young age. There is nothing I cannot face in the future. Because, it was really hard. Because it was not only the loss of my mom, it was also the loss of my teenage years. Because I first, stepped in as a responsible adult at 12 years old, the end stage of my childhood, going towards being a teenager. So I lost all of that from 12 until 16 until, I graduated. So I think I mourned the loss of that. But then eventually, when my brother and my sister graduated and they had their own money, it was very late in my 20s when I would, actually early 30s, when I had money to spend on myself. I think that was when, I said, okay, it's my turn. I will focus on me now.
That is a significant amount of time since 12 years old.
Yes, it is, because you're very young and you're still, um, identifying yourself even. And recently, a friend of mine said, and this comment got me curious. She said, um, it started with, when you're aging, when you're getting older, I'm having like hair loss. And I said to my friend, you know what, I'm having this hair loss, I don't know what to do. And she said, this is what you do, etc. She gave me like advice. And then at the end of it, she said, oh, I forgot, you didn't have a mom growing up, so you don't know these things. And then it occurred to me, you know what? You're right. I don't even have a skin routine. I don't even have, like any hair or skin routine that a mom would normally pass on to her daughters. I didn't have that. And it was only, like, seriously, only this July that I realized that. I had to learn everything on my own. Nobody passed on any rituals or advice to me in that department.
Yes, I I can definitely understand that. Thank you so much for sharing, Valerie. It's very vulnerable conversation. I really appreciate you opening up. And no matter what country you are in, the loss of your parent at such a young age is really, really traumatic. And the grief, you don't know where to go. And then the process can take really long time. And the responsibility that falls on your shoulder at such a young age, I've seen it, and it's definitely devastating. And not being able to be a kid,
Yes.
that's hard.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'm a late bloomer. I'm definitely a late bloomer. I didn't experience romance, like high school romance. I did not have the luxury of that.
I remember talking to my grandmother, and she grew up with extreme poverty during the World War II. She didn't have any parents, orphans around them that she kind of raised orphans from the war around her, and she really didn't have a chance to take care of herself. And after the war, she got married to my grandpa, but a year before I was born, he was killed by a car accident. So she had been a widow for a very long time. But at age like 60, she realized it's my turn, like you said. So she started to take shamisen, which is a Japanese instrument. And
Mm,
70s, she was full makeup, full blown kimono, performing and teaching until she got cancer and they couldn't do it anymore. So she was a late bloomer. Yeah, but I remember her telling me some stories that she had to grow up really quickly.
yeah, same with me.
I'm sorry. Well, Valerie, let's talk a little bit about the gun shooting. So, is it common in Philippines? How often does that happen in Manila?
Not for a foreigner, because he's American. He's an American. He was an American living here, and probably because he thought he could. Because there was a robbery, he was buying cigarettes, and then there's this person who comes in and says, hold up, give me all your money from the cashier or whatever. And he was a big guy, he was a big guy, and he was strong. He probably thought he could manage the person, the robber. What he didn't know was that there was another person waiting outside the store, like like an accomplice. So he made it to his car, but then he was shot there. He was shot in his car. But what made it more complicated, and this is again part of the adversity, is what made it more complicated is 3 years, even after 3 years of being with him, I did not know and only found out after he died that he was still married.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, so I was not even allowed into the wake.
Was he married in America?
No, he was married here. But every time, because we would meet, and it didn't occur to me because we would meet on weekends, and I had my own place, and I preferred my own place. It just didn't occur to me to, like, let's go to your place, and I could go to his office. His office mates know me. We would meet on a regular basis, etc. And he said he was already, like, divorced or separated, but only after, when he died, that I found out that that was a lie, that he was still living with the woman who was his wife.
Was she American or Filipino?
Filipina.
Was
Yeah.
she shocked when she found out?
um she knew about me. That's why I wasn't allowed. It's confusing, right? So she knew about me, I didn't know about her, but she had to save face also, I think, with the family. She didn't want the family to know that he was cheating on her. So there was no mention of me. I only know this because one of his closest friends was, like, messaging me and updating me about what's happening. I went to the wake area, but only outside. I couldn't go inside. I also didn't have I think the courage at that time to do that. So the mourning happened in private.
Oh, jeez.
I did not see, his body. And when he was shot, it was a Sunday. He was coming home from me. So he was just, he left my house. He stopped by a 7-Eleven to buy a cigarette, and that's when he was shot.
Wow. That is double shocking. Not only he got killed, but you found out after his death that he was actually cheating on his wife.
And cheating on me with his wife.
Wow. How did it affect you?
How it impacted me, of course, I was mad. I mean, at the beginning, I was so mad at him. But I mean, how can you get mad at a dead person? You can't. So that's why it's doubly hard because you can't. How who do you blame? Who you blame the shooter, but then okay, who do you blame for the cheating when the person's already gone? You can't. You can't blame anyone. So to me, the effect was I actually felt that I was saved. I actually felt that I was saved because I would have stayed in that relationship if he didn't die.
Oh my gosh.
So thinking about it, reframing, because I'm an NLP practitioner, when I reframed it, I realized it was a blessing
Mm,
for me because, it was a toxic relationship and I would have stayed.
wow. Well, again, thank you so much for sharing that, Valerie. I just hate cheating. I just like it's hard. It's very hard, and yeah,
It is. It is. And
it's
then having no one to blame after.
yeah,
I can't even slap him. I can't even kick him. You know what I mean? There's no physical manifestation of the anger. I can't. It's all inside.
yeah. Wow. One time I was in college and I was living with this guy, Japanese person, and I worked really hard during the college. We dated maybe a year, and I found out he was cheating on me when I was at college. But when I come home later, he would cook for me, he'd be nice, and then found out it was a double cheat because she was cheating on a boyfriend. So
Oh,
a double relationship.
yeah.
So really, really bad. Yeah, but anyways, well, let's talk about the third adversity that you mentioned about the loss of the job during the pandemic. So you worked really hard to get this chief. Um,
Hmm.
what
Marketing. Yes. So I started working at 20 years old. So, all throughout. And when this happened, I was 41. So I've been working for 21 years. Advertising, marketing. And that was really, I'm an achiever. When I set my eyes on something, I really make sure that I get it. I get there. And finally, I got it. I got that dream job that every marketer wants. But then April 4, 2020, I received a message from my boss that said, "We need to talk." And everybody knows those are four words you don't want to hear. You don't want to hear it from your spouse. You don't want to hear it from your boss, from anyone because it's serious. And I kind of knew what was going to happen. And she said, April 4, um, you can't go to work anymore. So that was a Saturday. She said you can't go to work anymore that the next Monday. There was no turnover. There was no saying goodbye. It was just, I'm sorry, you're fired. It was actually mutual. She gave me the chance because she's like, at that time, during the lockdown, she wanted me to work from our office somewhere else, to to kind of, it was like a, how do I say, she was like bribing me. You want to stay, you want to stay in your job, well, you have to work outside and not be with your family, and break the rules because you can't go out. It was the lockdown. She wanted me to go out and work and meet with people, and I'm like, I'm so sorry, I can't do that. I'm scared for my life. We don't know what's going to happen, because this was the start of the pandemic, and we would hear thousands of people dying every day from New York and London and in the Philippines. And I said, I cannot, I cannot choose work over my family, because what if something happens to me? I mean, you don't even give me insurance. What's gonna happen to my family? So I had to, I had to choose. So she said, okay, if you don't go to work, then I guess you're fired. I'm like, yes, I resign. So it was mutual. It was mutual. It was mutual. I didn't want to do what she wanted me to do. She said, I'm sorry. And that was April 4 of 2020.
How did you feel receiving that news?
Um, I mean, I I was so scared because, number one, how what will happen? What's going to happen if, again, I have the responsibility to my brother and to my sister. Like, what if something happens to them? How will I be able to help them financially? How will I be able to help others in my circle, my friends, financially? Because there was, many people here in the Philippines, 5 million people lost their jobs. And so that there was that fear, and there was also a lot of shame, because I've already reached the pinnacle. That was like, the top of the marketing world. And then, what, 4 months after, I lose it. It was embarrassing. I not deactivated, but I kind of laid low on my social media. At that time, nobody knew except my husband and my family, my brother, my sister, my dad. They were the only ones. And I couldn't tell anyone. I was embarrassed. I was, it's so shameful to me that happened to me. And again, like, being an achiever that I am, that was a big blow to my ego.
So did it affect your mental health stage, like depression, or like, I know shame is one of it, but like self-sabotage, or maybe like some, like the daily life, did it affect you after that news?
um I guess life has toughened me up already with, the first adversity. The second adversity, I was diagnosed actually with PTSD, post traumatic stress disorder, when my boyfriend passed away. But this one, I think the first two toughened me up. So I just, felt all the feelings. I just felt all the feelings. I just let it wash over me. So, I guess that's how it affect. I just let it be. It's like, what can I do? There's nothing I can do.
Especially when you're working in a corporate world since 20 years old, and that's your identity, and you reach the top. It's almost like identity crisis.
Yes. It was, but you know, I because of the certification that I have, eventually I got through it. I used some tools, etc. But it's just the way that it affected me it was more like, how do I say? I needed to do inner work. I needed to do more inner work because, like what you said, it hit my identity. So who am I now? If I'm not this corporate girl, if I'm not this marketing person, who am I now? So that's how it affected me. I really worked inward.
We're gonna save that part for the second question about how you got through that. But let's just talk a little bit about women working in the corporate world in Philippines, and then is it a lot of executives in Philippines? Is it gender equality? Is how do you describe that currently? Like in Japan, like I think 2016, very recently, the women firefighter was first time allowed. But
Mm,
before that, never women firefighter were allowed even in the field. And even after that, law had changed that only below 1% of female firefighters,
mm,
such as that. Then I've never seen train conductor or woman, even bus driver, never seen women. Um, Not so much of CEO, chief operator, executives. How is that in Philippines?
in the corporate world, at least where I used to be, there's a lot of women executive. There was a lot of women executives, but this was what my boss told me that I remember until now. We had to work harder because it's harder to get us in that position. It was harder to get us in that position, so we have to work harder. And I also didn't realize that this was a standard in terms of pay, that men get 30% higher because it is assumed, especially for executive positions, it is assumed that they are the ones taking care of their families. So even if I am in the same position, even if I worked harder, I would still be 30% less, earning 30% less than the man. That's how it works.
I heard the news recently. Women professional soccer player finally got equal payment as male professional soccer player, and this is the world news,
Yes.
not just Asia. Even in Hollywood, some superstars,
Yes.
men gets paid more, a woman gets paid less,
Hmm.
and it's a well-known factor. Even in America, forget about Japan, it's not there. So you have to work harder to even
Harder.
do this corporate ladder. How did you have to work harder to try to achieve, try to prove? Like, what was it like to get to the top? Um,
Um, you have to play the visibility game. Um, my husband calls it, what's the word? It's like everything is what you see. You know, meaning, for example, these are like strategies. I make sure that I'm in the right meetings. I volunteer myself for high profile events, things like that. Even during Christmas parties, I am the host. Like I act as the host of Christmas parties so that they know who I am. The executives know who I am. So by the time that my papers get submitted for promotion, they won't even need to ask, who is this person? They know. They already know. So that's how I placed myself. That's how I, positioned myself when it comes to working hard. You also have to work smart. I mean, we sometimes deny the existence of politics, but when you want that power, when you want that seat, that what they call the seat at the table, you also have to play the game. That's what I learned.
Yeah, I think I've heard a word, you have to learn how to play the political game.
You do. I mean, I did not go as far as, kissing ass or something, but I made sure they know me. Like they know me, they know my name, they know my face. I shake hands with them. I was the only non C level executive that was invited in the owner's yacht party. I was the only I was senior manager at that time. Everybody was like, assistant vice president, senior assistant vice president. But that is because the event that they will, because it was a fireworks show. So they were in a yacht to watch the fireworks from the bay. But that fireworks show was my event. So I got invited to the exclusive party. Because I mean, it's logical to have me there. So those things, you really have to be smart about how to place yourself.
You have to be strategic.
Yes. And intentional.
Mm. Wow. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. It's very interesting. I've never really talked to somebody from Philippines and in the corporate world and the success, but then also devastation of the loss. And I had a nonprofit for 12 years. And when I closed my nonprofit as a president and founder, I definitely experienced identity crisis because I was this person, a president and founder for the nonprofit. So my friend said, like, Juri, you look like a ghost or something. Because part of it is almost like a baby, like, the loss of a child. When you put so much in your work field with so much passion. And again, the identity that you have, you as a marketing advertising person, I as a nonprofit leader, and then people start to know you, the community
Mhm.
start to call you that. And then you just lose it like that. And then it's
Yes,
hard.
it is hard because you don't even know how to describe yourself anymore. Like what are you? How will you introduce yourself to people around you? Like, it used to be, hi, I'm Valerie, I work in real estate, and I'm an assistant vice president or something. And how now?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I completely get it. Like I definitely went through that. But thank you. So, Valerie, let's move on to the tools part. So, you had shared three different adversities. So, let's talk about tools that you applied to overcome these adversities. So, first of all, loss of your mom. Like, what do you think the best tool that you used to overcome loss of your mom at age 15?
I wasn't aware of it at that time, but I think the tool that I used is really just taking responsibility for my brother and my sister. It was like, if I wasn't strong for them, who will be strong for them? Like there was no one else. I mean, my dad was with us, but he was working and he was always away because his job required him to be away, like physically away, so that he can continue providing for us. So I really had to be there, like physically be the I don't know, like the head person, the head of the family. So the tool was just thinking of my brother and my sister. It was really that. I don't know if you can call it a tool, but that was the mindset that I had at that time. And I just continued. In my head, I just kept on playing what my mom would always tell me, because between the two, my mom and my dad, it was really my mom who believed in me. So I would play her words back, with her saying, you can do it. Like when I have exams, when I have competitions, when I have whatever it is that I'm trying to achieve, she would always say, you can do it. And that's what really helped me survive. I didn't want to let her down because she knew that I could do it.
Wow. How about the loss of your boyfriend and then finding out the cheating part? How did you? What kind of tools that you applied that worked for you to get through that adversity?
Two tools, particularly because I was already much older. I used travel. So he passed away September, and I said, life is short. That's really a realization of how short life is. He was just in my house. He drove away, and then he never came back. And I was like reminded again of what happened to my mom, that life is short. You don't know when people are going to leave, and you don't know when you're going to leave the world. So I decided to get all of my life savings, like, everything. Remember, I said it's my turn. So when I started saving for myself, until that time, I went and traveled to Europe. Like I went to Istanbul, Paris, and then Belgium and Amsterdam by myself. Like I traveled alone, and that was, very empowering. That was very empowering. That told me myself, my unconscious also, that I don't need a man to help me fulfill my dreams, because I did that myself. I fulfilled my dream of traveling to Paris myself. So that's one. And then, so, just travel. And then the second one, that helped me, the tool that helped me, was writing. I wrote two articles that were published about that loss, about the loss of my boyfriend, and that helped me a lot to process the grief and to help me understand what happened. The writing also helped other people around me, like those lurkers in your life who just follow you. And then when I started writing and sharing my story, they would message me and say, thank you for sharing that. I totally relate. I lost my this one. I lost my this one. I lost, whatever loss that they were experiencing at the time, they shared with me. And they felt like I was like championing them also when I share my story. So those are the two tools, travel and writing.
I'm so glad that you did that. I'm so glad that you went to Europe by yourself. And it's so important that, especially women, that to realize I don't need a man to be successful and I don't need a man to travel by myself. And I actually did that after my first divorce. I went to Spain by myself. I went to Israel by myself. And I was in Spain for 3 weeks by myself and in Israel for like 10 days or maybe less. When it just really made me realize that I'm okay, I can stand. And it was interesting, Valerie. It was a bus that I took from Jerusalem to Eilat. It was 4 hours ride. alone, and there's a woman next to me. And then I was telling her that I just recently got separated and divorced. And she said, Juri, you came on this earth with two legs, and then you're gonna leave this earth with two legs, not four legs. So think about that. That's what she
Yes.
said. Yes. So, and then sometimes traveling can physically remove yourself from the situation, and
Yes.
sometimes that cleanses your soul physically.
Hmm.
And then seeing a completely different places, and eating different foods, meeting different people, that can definitely put you in a totally different mental stage.
Agree. I agree.
Did you feel good? How long did you travel?
It was only, I don't know, like 14 days. It was very short. It was very short because I was working also at the time, so I just got whatever available leave that I had, and I was actually thinking of somewhere close, like in Asia. But then I'm like, when am I gonna do this? When else am I going to travel to my dream destination? When am I going to do this? So I told my friend who's also my travel agent, I said, let's do it. Let's do it. This is all my savings. Let's do it. I'm going to get the money back when I come back, for to work again anyway. So let's just do it.
I am so happy you did that to yourself. Yeah, it's definitely important. And how about the loss of the job?
Um, the loss of the job, again, because I'm older, it was more strategic. What the tools that I use, and also because I'm also a certified practitioner, NLP practitioner at the time. Um, Identity. So we were talking about identity. I wrote, like writing again. I wrote an inventory of what I did in the past, what I'm good at, and what I enjoyed. So there's like a notebook of not my job titles, the things that I actually did, like meet with clients, present, go on stage, whatever. So I wrote those down, wrote all my credentials, etc. And then I looked at it, and then I said, whoa, I've done a lot, and there's things that I can combine from all of these because no one was gonna hire at that time. It was all freeze hiring because I mean, they were firing. There was no hiring. It was all firing. So I said, how am I gonna survive this pandemic if I don't make use of what I know? And I sincerely wanted to help people because I knew it was not only me who lost jobs. So I combined the things that I know, so NLP, marketing, advertising, business, etc. And then I came up with a method, which I eventually called brain science selling, that I help people with. So there's a marketing method. So the online sellers, for example, if you're an Amazon seller or Facebook, you sell on Facebook or you sell on Instagram, and or I came from real estate sellers didn't know how to sell online because they were used to face open house. So I used what I know to teach them. So that inventory was my tool, the inner work that I mentioned earlier. I even went as far back as when I was 12 years old, when my mom first started getting sick and we needed extra money, that I became a tutor to younger kids. And then I realized that's why I'm a trainer now, because I actually had it with me even as young as 12. And it's something, even if you're not facing an adversity, for everybody who's listening or watching right now, it's something that you can use. Write down, write down the things that you have been doing, that you did in the past, that you enjoyed, and you will find the reason why you're here, or your next step.
That is very interesting to be able to see. And then you mentioned about something that you enjoy, you wrote it down too.
That I enjoyed teaching. I enjoyed mentoring.
Mm.
Because when I was in the corporate world, I enjoyed, grooming people into knowing what I know, like downloading what I know and helping them also thrive in that environment. So I used that to what I do now. And I also enjoy, even when I was, in college, giving advice to friends. So because I enjoy that, and then I'm a coach, I mean, I'm NLP certified, I said, why not be a coach? So that's where it all went. That's why I am who I am now, because of that loss of a job, the dream job. It actually led me to my purpose.
I see. Well, thank you so much for this conversation. And my last question is a gift that came from these adversities.
Um, so much awareness, self-awareness, I think is very important. It's critical in the way that we live our lives, because I know my strengths, I know my weaknesses, I know that, I can go through whatever adversity that I will probably go through in the future, knowing what I know now and knowing what I have already experienced. So awareness for me is one, and then the second is clarity. I know now why I'm here. I know why I'm put in this earth.
Well, thank you so much for that. So, before you leave this podcast, if anyone's suffering or facing with any of the adversity that you faced in your life, what is your biggest advice that you can give?
um you just have to go through it. There's no over, there's no under, there's no shortcut to it. You have to go through it, because at the end of it, when you go through it, when you look back, you will realize, wow, I did it. I survived one of the most difficult times of my life. And that will make you proud of yourself. And that pride, that awareness, that pride that you did it, will take you through the next one. Because it doesn't stop with just one adversity. Life happens. Life happens.
Well, thank you so much, Valerie, for coming to a gift from adversity today. And I truly appreciate you sharing the story so bravely, courageously, and you're very strong, you're poised, and a very brilliant person. So I really appreciate you sharing your story today.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you, everyone, and see you next time.